Hello there, sword friends. Today I'm going to answer a question that I get asked often enough, and that is, what is my favorite longsword? Now, I certainly get asked more, what is my favorite katana, but I've already done that video, and people actually had some cool commentary, and it started some fun conversation. So I'm hoping the same thing happens here. I'm interested in what your favorite longsword is and why, and I'm gonna tell you what mine is. It might surprise you, it might not. I guess some of you are longtime watchers of the channel and might already know what my favorite longsword is. I'm categorizing it as longsword because if I go arming sword or great sword or I don't know, there's a lot. Anyway, it's a broad enough category, but I'm going to tell you what my favorite one is. Now, similar to the video that I did on the katana, it's colored by what I do with the thing and what my experiences are. And unlike the Japanese style sword, I don't study historic European martial arts, so I don't have a practice tool that I prefer because I'm involved in a particular system that has specific requirements. Long swords I can just like because they're pretty or fun to move, or because they slash well in my backyard. I don't have any requirements for education for them other than my own personal gratification, right? So that's why the sword that I like the most is my favorite, and that is the Albion Mercenary with a custom scabbard on it. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about why it's my favorite, and some people are going to find it surprising because it's not a particularly great cutter. I imagine it's on my list of things to do to sharpen it up and then make a supplemental video about how well it cuts if you put a razor edge on it. But the reason I like this sword is twofold, right? One, the buying experience and the experience I have around it and the scabbard are fun and creative and cool and sentimental, and I can't help but love it because when I look at it, I get positive vibes. It was a good experience, a learning experience, and that's really the primary reason I like it. But it's also a great sword. The Mercenary is no slouch, and it was one of the earlier longswords that I reviewed, and I don't think it really gets enough credit. It's a big wide type, what is it, type 15, I believe. But the reinforced tip, I really feel more and more as I age, like I can use this one-handed. I have really effective control over the point. The cut, it feels authoritative. It doesn't have a sharp edge. It doesn't cut particularly well. This one anyway doesn't. The center ridge, it's also not so thick that it is like a crowbar when you whack around. It has a profile that would lend itself reasonably well to cutting if I put a keen enough edge on it. It's also got a really pointy point that does some thrusty stuff, which I don't practice much, but admittedly, maybe I should. So anyway, it's fun one-handed, it's wonderful two-handed, and it can cut. I at least need to put my money where my mouth is and prove that. But it's also a very, very fun sword to move around. And I know that it can thrust, I know that it can cut, and I know it feels good in one or two hands. So it really is a very versatile sword. But that's not usually why I like swords. Usually I like swords because I cut with them. So as I think of the Steward that I have behind me, or some of the other Albion swords, or A-trim swords, or things like that I enjoy cutting with, if I'm doing water bottle cutting, tatami cutting the typical targets that I would tend to, there are certainly more effective tools at doing that. Unquestionably, there are swords that are better, but this one has the style of pommel that I like, this large kind of scent stopper, faceted pommel. The crossguard I find handsome enough, not necessarily my favorite, but handsome enough, and it feels really good. I really like the overall feeling, and it's up to party and do whatever task I really want it to do. So I feel it's really versatile, and the scabbard was made for me by Matt Hall of Matt's Great Hall. It used to be Everything Medieval, but he changed it around. He made me a scabbard some time ago. I talked about it in a video, but he's got a swirly Mitsudome stamped in there, of course. And there's a belt system that went with it, and he made a scabbard for me, and that was awesome. And when he was making it for me, I got a little worried because it was taking him longer, but poor dude's got like a bunch of kids and a job, and I feel like a real asshole now for being like, hey, can I have my stuff back? If I'd been a little bit more patient, but I was itching to do some sword stuff with a Mercenary at the time. Anyway, the scabbard, Matt made it for me. It's fantastic. I have very positive feelings for it. I got the sword secondhand at a pretty good deal as well, from a guy that didn't want to ship it, and we had some fun conversation. He eventually sold it to me, and I was really grateful for that. But anyway, overall, it's just one of those buying experiences where I had a good time doing it. All the memories that I have with this sword are positive ones, from buying, from the scabbard, from moving it around, from doing reviews, from being involved a little bit more, learning a lot. People commented quite a bit on the Mercenary review that I did, and I learned a lot and different aspects of what people look for from swords when I started doing it, particularly around the Mercenary video I did. So it's kind of got a special place in my heart for those reasons, and that's really why it's my favorite. Not because it's a bad sword, but just because of all those other cool things. In contrast, there totally have been swords that were also really cool that I really enjoyed, but when I looked at them, they infuriated me. And so none of them are long swords necessarily, but as I think of swords that I really would have enjoyed, or that felt good in my hands, I think about the experience and stress that went into getting them or some situation around them, and then I just didn't want them around. I just couldn't stand looking at them anymore, because every time I picked it up, it made me think of that. And anyway, that's my own problem. But this, full of positive sentimental memories, and also learning experiences. Also, it's a pretty darn good sword. So that's why this one is my favorite longsword. Is it the best at any particular thing? I would venture, I guess not, but it sure is fun to use regardless. So anyway, that's my reasons. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, it's all colored by the experience that I have. If I were studying a particular style of swordsmanship that favored one thing over another, I might choose a completely different tool, or I might focus my time and energy and effort, or have different memories from a different piece. But frankly, I don't, because that's not a facet of swordsmanship that I'm currently involved in. So anyway, it may change over time, but for the moment, this one's my favorite. That's why, and I'm interested to hear what your favorites are. Please throw it in the commentary down below. Not just what your favorite is, but why. Is it a sentimental, goofy story like mine? Is it that it does something particularly well? Interested to hear. Anyway, that's all I've got. Cheers, and thanks for watching.